Well, guys, time to get to a classic slasher film review. I haven't done a review on a slasher film in a while. Figured why not do a review on a classic 80s slasher film for you guys, and that review is for The Burning. Now, The Burning came out in 1981, gets a 6.5 on IMDb, directed by Tony Maylim, and this movie was a film that I have been wanting to see for years. I mean, I remember hearing about this movie back in like 2013 when I first started doing movie reviews, and people were suggesting slasher films for me. And I remember a lot of people were suggesting The Burning for me to see. And that was a pretty cool poster. And The Burning is a slasher film that gets a lot of attention. Of course, this is the Scream Factory edition, so you have that artwork as well. And you have, this is the DVD and Blu-ray combo pack. If you're a fan of The Burning, this really looks great on Blu-ray, sounds fantastic, and it has a lot of great features. It's a commentary, interviews, trailers, and more. As well as trailers and still galleries. And I pretty much heard about this movie a lot because I was doing reviews on the Jason movies back then and a couple other slasher films, and people have suggested a couple of the ones that I hadn't really seen yet. Stuff like My Bloody Valentine, Terror Train, The Prowler, The Burning, Sleepaway Camp. People have suggested a lot of really great slasher films to me that I had not seen yet. And I'd seen this movie probably around 2 weeks ago, and then I rewatched it recently, just so I can get it kind of fresh in my mind to do a review on it. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed The Burning. I think it's a great film. I think it's one of those slasher films that really helped elevate the genre in the early 80s. Of course, it came out 1 year after the first Friday the 13th, probably around the same time as Part 2. And with this movie, you have a summer camp atmosphere, as well as some really gory kills and some really good characters. Also a very good atmosphere, and I'll get into all that in a second, but the story pretty much is about Cropsey, this guy who at the beginning of the movie is getting pranked, and he ends up getting set on fire. And he runs into the lake, and he goes to the hospital, and you find that he gets horribly disfigured from the burning. And it's years later, and Cropsey is out of the hospital, and he goes back to this camp to get revenge on the campers there. And I think that what I really enjoy about this movie is that it has a great cast. You have a lot of really memorable characters in this film. You have the guy from Seinfeld in this movie, which is crazy to me because I had no clue he was in this movie. But you also have a lot of other great characters as well, like Woodstock. You have the lead girl, who's also very hot. The lead guy, who's a pretty decent actor. Jason Alexander, playing Dave. I know he was also in the a McDonald's commercial for what was it? Was it the McDLT or something like that? Or it was like the Styrofoam. I just remember him from that commercial because he always did the dance segment, and I was like, that's the guy from Seinfeld. What the heck is he doing in this movie? And he's even like, it's kind of weird because in Seinfeld, you know, he's playing a certain character. In this movie, he's like passing out nude mags and cigarettes and passing out all this crazy stuff to the other campers there. He's pretty much a supply guy. You need some rubbers, he's got some rubbers. You need a mag, he's got the mag. You need some lotion, you got the lotion. I love that character. They did a great job. Also, I liked Woodstock, kind of the guy who is trying to get laid through the entire movie. He even has these pills that I guess is enhancement pills. And even one person is like, "Do you think that shit works?" You also have Larry Joshua playing Glazer, pretty much the asshole of the movie. But he's like one of those assholes that you don't hate. You're just kind of like, he's just such a hilarious character. You just, can't help but get behind him. You have a lot of hot chicks in this movie. A lot of hot chicks. And I like how different characters have different things going on. Like, I really enjoyed the aspect of this one guy kind of pick up chicks like that, And then when he does pick up chicks, he doesn't get lucky but yet Glazer gets lucky and he's a complete, douchebag. You also have Brian Backer, who's also kind of this quiet kid who doesn't really talk much, and he's kind of like one of those kids who, kind of still believes in the legend of Cropsy a little bit, trying to look into it. So you have like characters for everybody in this movie. You have the cheerleaders, the quiet girls, the strong lead characters. You have people trying to get laid, the ones who are kind of laid back, the ones that just kind of go with the flow. You got the quiet kids. You got all kinds of different characters in this movie. And I think that's what really helps this film is that, you need characters in any kind of a film. It doesn't have to be a slasher movie, but if you have decent characters in a film, it really helps. Tom Savini doing the effects in this movie are amazing. I think he turned down what did he turn down? Did he turn down part 2 of Friday the 13th to do this movie? I can't remember what he turned down. He turned down something to do this movie. I just can't remember right now. But he turned down a film to do this movie. I think it might have been either Friday the 13th Part 2 or maybe, I don't know. I think it was Friday the 13th Part 2. But Tom Savini does the effects in this movie, and they are fantastic. You have really gory death scenes that are very practical. You have a really classic scene where there's like this multi-death scene where there's people on this raft. And I'll get to that in a second. But you got that crazy scene. You got the killer using a very memorable weapon. That's the hedge cutters, which Roy would go on to use in Part 5 of Friday the 13th. But, I kind of think of it as an homage to Cropsy's weapon in this movie. Uses the hedge clippers to kill people. It's a pretty cool idea. And pretty much the gist of the plot is that Cropsy gets to that camp and he starts murdering people. And these kids end up going out to this island that's supposedly cursed. So they go out to it on these rafts, and they get stuck out there because somebody has pushed the canoes offshore. And while they're on this island, people start getting killed. You got people getting hedge clippers to their neck, out to the back, getting hung on trees. You got the raft death scene where there's people getting their fingers cut off and head caved in by the hedge clippers. You got all kinds of crazy death scenes going on in this movie. You have all kinds of crazy death scenes in this movie, and pretty much most of them involve the hedge clippers. And the movie does a great job of building up suspense, surprisingly. You get to the end of the film where there's a lead character, he's trying to figure out what's going on, and he pretty much gets everybody off of the island. And a good majority of these characters actually survive the film because there's so many campers, they can't kill everybody. So while they're getting sent back to the camp, the lead guy is chasing after this last person, pretty much the quiet kid, doesn't really say much. And they go up to this kind of, I guess, like a mine shaft or maybe like I think it's like a mine shaft or something like that. They go up there and they find Cropsy, and they find that Cropsy's face is just like horribly disfigured. And not quite realistic to a burn victim, but he's still kind of just really misshapen and kind of his face is twisted up. And you have an awesome ending where the lead guy, trying to save this kid from being killed. Cropsy, gets fought, knocked down, gets a flamethrower, starts, flamethrowing the entire place up. The lead guy ends up putting an axe right here in Cropsy's head, and like a really cool effect where the head kind of splits open like a melon, right here, an axe in the head. And pretty much is the end of the film. Cropsy gets killed. It's later on. The lead guy's a little older. He's telling the story of Cropsy. He's saying, like, will he be back? Nobody knows. But always, watch out. And stuff like that. I can't remember the dialogue exactly, but he's pretty much telling a campfire story. And the movie ends. It's a very straightforward slasher film, but I feel like this movie does a lot of great things. First of all, the death scenes and the nudity is not the only selling points of this film. And I really appreciate that, because there's been slasher movies that I've seen that there's been problems with because it feels like there's only the death scenes that are going for it and the nudity. And that's stuff like Terror Train, which is an okay film, but it's not the best slasher film in my opinion. I've I really appreciated the gift from Steve. I seen it, and my honest opinions on it is that it's a decent film. But a lot of people were telling me that it was one of the best slasher films out there. For me, it's kind of a decent, okay movie. But I think it's because it didn't have the characters, it didn't have the story, it didn't have the building blocks that you need for a film. Because the acting was bad, the story I didn't really care for. I didn't really care for the revenge plot or any of that stuff. It did have some cool stuff in it, but there was definitely some stuff that I thought were kind of bad. The pacing was slow, the acting was just horrendous, and it pretty much was like the only thing that was going for it was the kills, nudity, and Jamie Lee Curtis. For me, at least. And also The Prowler, because The Prowler is a pretty slow-paced movie. There's not really the best characters in it, but it does have some pretty good makeup effects. Here, it's a fast-paced film, has great characters, likable characters, relatable characters that feel realistic, and the camp atmosphere is done very well in this movie. Probably not as well as this movie. I feel like this movie did the camp atmosphere a little better, but it still does have a pretty solid camp atmosphere. I like the backstory of Cropsey. I like his look, his twisted face, kind of a look. And you don't really get to see his outfit too much, kind of like a black kind of jumpsuit outfit he has with gloves. But at the end of the movie, when you see his face, kind of a cool look for Cropsey. The hedge clippers is a pretty cool weapon that he uses. Brutal death scenes, awesome makeup effects, great direction, great characters, and ultimately just a very fun slasher film. I mean, it's got a lot of stuff going for it. I can definitely say I enjoyed this more than The Prowler and Terror Train. Like I said, this movie is, in my opinion, just miles better, and I think it's also one of my favorite slasher films to watch. But yeah, if you're curious, you've never seen it before, kind of spoiled it for you, but if you haven't seen it yet, check out The Burning. It's a very classic slasher film, and I was very impressed by it. And also, really enjoy that poster. Keep showing you guys it because I really enjoy it. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much my review on The Burning. I almost call it The Prowler, but it's The Burning. I hope you guys with the review. It's a very fun film. Pick up this release because it has a lot of great features on it. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching the review on The Burning, and I'll see you guys on the next review. The Explorer of Horror is out. See you guys.